Hey everybody, got another video here for you. So, thicknessing necks. This custom-made neck routing sled, and it's just two rails, two fences, and two legs. It's made out of 2x4. There's cut the appropriate thickness, and then cut the length and screwed together. And you want it to be, the legs have to be tall enough that you can get a neck under it, but you don't want to make them too tall or else your router won't go all the way down and it won't go down far enough to make the final cut. So you can't make the legs too tall, and they got to be tall enough that you can get a neck under it. And the fences are simply set, at the appropriate distance for the size of the router base plate for whatever router you have. The base plate sizes vary slightly from one model to the next. So, the last one I had that was of a different model was a couple millimeters wider than this thing, as I recall, something like that. And then when you're actually doing the routing, the way you set it up is you put the guitar, you turn the bits so that they're going, the ones that stick down are on that side and this side, and then you bring the guitar up so that it's underneath the part that doesn't have bits, and then you just release the trim router and let it drop down onto the neck, and that way you're cutting off exactly the amount that the bits stick out on each pass. And I'm actually about to do the last pass here, because watch, I'll drop it down, get it lined up, bring it down, and now the router bit is resting on the edge of the neck. And there you can see. You can clearly see you've got the teeth over the edge, and the neck is, the router bit is on the edge, and so yeah, they go just like that. And that's the way you set the depth for each pass. And then you just clamp it off. Bring it back up here. Clamp it off. And that's the height for your next pass right there. And then you just turn on and go back and forth. And slide along. You take out about half the width of your bit on each pass. And that's all there is to that part. Now here, if you look, this is basically a thickness gauge, and what it is you want a 20 millimeter neck. Get the neck over here. You want a 20 millimeter thick neck, and then you have to take into account the frets, which are about 1.5 usually for jumbos. And this just happens to add up to 21.4, which is close enough for government work. And so, yeah, you'll see here. You hold it up to the neck, and it's just about as thick as the neck with the frets. So, when you get down to right where I'm at now, real close, I think it's like I have to do one cut that's as deep as the bits, and then I have to take another 1/10 of a mil off or something. So what you do is you just put this underneath, and it's actually almost on there already. And you just set it down onto the spacer like that and clamp it off. So now you can see that the bottoms of the cutting bits that stick out on the sides, they're actually resting on the spacer. And so now this is my correct final pass depth. And here we go. I forgot to mention you have to use a flat surface to get good results. And then the router sled is mounted to the table with CA glue and masking tape trick. So there it is, and then you run over it with the quarter sheet sander and smooth things out, and then you can mark it out for carving. It looks to be a slightly thicker, wider carve than an Alkanov brand Ibanez neck, but not that much different. You probably wouldn't. You might notice it for 5 seconds when you first picked up one versus the other, kind of a thing. It is thicker. I've actually had Alkanovs that were thinner than 20 millimeters right here, but this one actually, the final pass was still cutting all the way to the nut line. Oh, that's the other thing is you cut to the nut line. Yeah, see, there's the nut, or the end of the fingerboard, the 0 fret, and you cut to there, and then you shape everything in. And that's the long and short of how to thickness a neck. And that completes the rough shaping of the neck with power tools. And then need to cut this out with a jigsaw, and then there might be some hand shaping, and then sanding. And I wasn't really watching the clock. It took me a couple hours maybe. So, checking out the results, it's pretty damn flat actually on both sides. Any little minor humps or something that I might feel or find, they'll come out with level block sanding. And yeah, there's no major humps. There's no dips at all that I can feel. Dips are kind of bad because obviously you can't get rid of a dip. So what happens there is once you end up get everything level and sanded and stuff, especially if you're going for a mirror flat clear coat finish, you'll be able to see where the dip is. And you might even be able to feel it a little bit, depending on how bad it is. But from a player's point of view, really just a little, like, a dip the size of the end of your finger that's, not deep, not like a gouge or something. It's not going to affect playability to any degree. It might come out as cosmetic flaw, and it might come out when you're looking at the neck with your fingers, but it's not going to affect playability. You'd actually be surprised how unflat and smooth the neck can be and still be comfortable and playable. I mean, this right here, I could bolt this right on a guitar and play it right now. It's smooth enough. It's not flat, but it doesn't have any deep gouges, and it doesn't have any huge humps that would mess with me when I was playing. Okay, time to tackle this headstock here. This is going to be on the back here I drew it in pencil so you can get an idea of what it's going to look like. And these are some of the thinnest prongs that I've ever dared to attempt. Maybe I should only carry it to the second hole, but then I got those. Yeah, so these guys here are the two thinnest that I've ever attempted, and it's going to be fragile when it's done. If you drop this, once the guitar is fully assembled, if you dropped it, from like playing height when you're standing onto the floor, even a carpeted floor, you'd probably bust a prong. One of these prongs would probably break off. But if you're just, swinging it around and bumping into the wall or something like that, they should be okay. So I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to cut it out as best I can with the jigsaw, but then after that, there's really no tool that'll fit down in there except for needle rasps, that kind of thing. So I'm thinking fab up a sanding stick kind of thing from some 2mm and 60 grit for finishing after the jigsaw. So there's very little hand sanding left to be done. I have to do the bottom around there and the bottom of the edge of the fretboard here. And I have to do these edges here on the headstock, front and back. And that's pretty much it. Oh, right in here, the shoulder areas. I might touch these up again a bit with the round microplane in order to thin it out a bit. Depending on, yeah, I'll probably use the microplane. It'll probably cut faster than 60 grit. And then just finish out with 60 grit. Get that transition a little smoother. And that's it. So, yeah, very little hand sanding involved. Well, I made a sandy stick. I suppose I might as well use it. Change the plans. I can do all this with a power sander. Normally I'd use the quarter sheet sander, but I recently got one of these little detail sanders, I guess they call them. So I think I'll give this thing a shot. Yeah, it looks like the detail sander is definitely the better tool for doing that kind of work. So. And with that, I think it's done. And there's still some areas that have clear coat on them, but that's okay because it's going to get clear coat on it anyway. So it's already got a head start with a first coat of clear coat on the front and the back of the headstock. And that's it. Okay, I went fishing and I don't have an all black lock nut, so I ordered up a pair, 2 for $7. And those will be here in 2 days. In the meantime, I can use that for fitting. And then when the black one shows up, then I can glue it in place. These were the truss rod covers I had to choose from. I had oval and traditional kind of bell shapes. In bells, I had an ebony and a rosewood, and in ovals, I had a black plastic and a rosewood. And I decided to go with the black ebony. These are all too long, so no matter what I choose, it's going to have to be cut in half or whatever. And I decided to go with the black ebony like that. And then I went ahead and I slapped the lock nut up here, and that made it pretty obvious that the truss rod cover is going to have to be cut to length. And so then I chose the truss rod covers, got it centered on there, sketched out roughly where it goes. That gave me an idea of where I want to put my ferrules. And so then I struck a line for the ferrules and measured them all out and marked them. And now it's time to drill some center holes and then drill the headstock for ferrules from both the front and the back. Oh, yeah, the other thing I did is I had like 3 different sizes of ferrules to choose from. I think actually the largest one in this kit, a ball will almost go through, but there were 3 that were big enough for a number 6 string and small enough to not let the ball end go through. So I decided I'm going to go with the smaller ones, this size. They're about 2.5 mil outside diameter, probably at least 2 mil inside diameter. So that tells me I need a 3 mil drill bit for those. And now it's time to go set up the drill press. Well, I think that's going to do it for this video. So, until the next one, everybody, have a good one.